Hey YouTube, when was post 1975? There's a question down there. What retro franchise? Sorry, I've no idea what happened to my voice then. What retro franchise do you think never sort of lived up to its true potential? Or its heritage, I should say, or got a decent representation on the current gen systems? I ask this because we're almost at the end of the lifespan for the current gen systems, so I think it's safe to say, while there are some more big releases coming, certain franchises that we love, we've probably seen the last of them. Now, I understand that, you know, it's important for you, you know, as a developer or whatever, to always try and move your franchise forward, to try new things, you know, push it in new directions. I get that, it's good, because, you know, you don't want something to stagnate. But at the same time, I think, you know, you've got to be careful that if you take something too far away from what established it in the first place, you're in danger of removing the character of what made it what it was, if that makes sense, of it becoming a different product. Now, the franchise I want to talk about is Resident Evil. Now, before people say, hang on a minute, Resident Evil games were great on the current gen systems, and they were popular. Yeah, they were Resident Evil games, and they were very, very popular, but that's it. They didn't feel like Resident Evil games to me. Now, taste is subjective, so if you like them, that's cool. I'm not bashing anyone who liked them. Maybe I would have liked them if they weren't Resident Evil games. See, the thing for me is I love Resident Evil, particularly the second. It's literally my second favourite game of all time, you know, after Metal Gear Solid. When the first one came out, it was something utterly new, this concept of survival horror. Genuinely creepy. Alright, it's aged a bit badly, you know. It was rendered background with sort of polygon characters, you know, and enemies. Had terrible voice acting, but I think that's part of its charm now. But, you know, there's no denying it. You know, it did literally create, you know, a new sort of genre. I might be wrong, but to me, at least, it's the first survival horror game. Balls hard, but I loved it. But the one, as I said, was my favourite was Resident Evil 2. Absolutely love and adored that game. You know, I remember I literally completed it in 2 days. That's both discs. I just couldn't stop playing it. Proper scary bits in that. I remember being in the house by myself at 2 o'clock in the morning and realising I was by myself and that a video game had creeped me out. 3, it's weaker than 2, but then it's like that difficult second album, isn't it? 2 is so good. How would you follow it up? 3, you know, I love the Mercs mode in it, by the way. Yeah, 3 is by no means a terrible game. It's a very, very good, solid game. It's just the game that came after 2. Then I don't count any of the gun games, as I don't count the gun games on the Wii, even though I enjoy them. That's not a Resident Evil game to me. That's not survival horror. That's, you know, shooting shit. Code Veronica was interesting because they did try a different approach. Gone were the rendered backgrounds. You know, you did have some genuine 3D effect, but you still had that control scheme. And this is the thing for me. This is why I don't like what they've done with the new games. I played 4 initially on the GameCube and then on the Wii, and I did like it, particularly on the Wii. The controls were brilliant, but that's just it. The controls weren't a Resident Evil game. And also Gone with the Zombies. I mean, that might be because I'm a massive zombie fan, or zombie whore, you know, and I love the fact that they were the main sort of, you know, protagonists, sorry, bad guys, because you're the protagonist. That would have been a cool alternative game mode though, wouldn't it? But yeah, and I mean, they've come back in other spin-off games, such as Raccoon City, which was just a massive letdown. I mean, I was looking so forward to that because it was in, you know, sets during, you know, the time of Resident Evil 2, but it was just, it felt like Horde mode from Gears of War. But yeah, going back to the controls, I'm waffling already. Yeah, the controls were, I don't want this third-person, you know, control scheme where it controls like a normal game. In fact, I'll probably go as far as to say it suffered from having good, tight controls. Because if you think about it, as much as we pissed and moaned about the controls in the original, you know, sort of Resident Evil games, they certainly added to it. If you could have controlled it with a simple up, down, left, right, the game would have been incredibly easy. And this is the point I want to make. Gone immediately would have been that sense of claustrophobia. You know, when you had to navigate around zombies through narrow corridors and you had very little health and they only just missed you and stuff like that, and the spiders and shit. That was definitely, and I'm sure it was deliberate, was such a part of what made those games for me. You know, I'm actually promoting bad controls. Well, not bad controls, but, you know, interesting. But the reason I like that element was, isn't that kind of what the nature of horror is? You're never truly 100% in control, you know. You're never completely, you know, safe in your own hands. You know, regardless of how good you are, there are other elements, and the controls obviously being them, you know, making it sort of a scarier, more difficult experience. I mean, 5 came along, and 5, I played it literally for an hour, and I know people talk about it and say it's brilliant, and maybe, as I said, if it wasn't a Resident Evil game I would have enjoyed it, but it was like, no zombies, I don't like this, and as I said, you know, Raccoon City, and then 6 was just, that's the one I played today and then just went, oh, and put the pad down. And the game I completed very recently was Resident Evil 0 on the GameCube, while I was playing it on the Wii, but the Wii version of the GameCube version. Never understood why they did that. Why didn't it, since it was backward compatible, just buy the GameCube version? That was the route they should have gone. You know, basically just a different sort of polygon engine with better rendered, you know, visual backgrounds. You know, it would have been HD, for God's sake. It would have been utterly fantastic. So yeah, the franchise for me that never really sort of lived up to its potential on the current gen was Resident Evil. You know, as I said, the games may not be bad, people love them, but they're not Resident Evil games. So anyway, I'd love to know what you think. You know, what retro series never really got a decent representation or lived up to its heritage on current gen. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.